Hi, Rich Tehrani here in the TMC newsroom at Interop 2009 in Las Vegas. Today, we're speaking with Jason Liu, who is with Univa. Jason, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Rich?
I'm doing fantastic.
Great.
So we had a briefing a little bit earlier today, and you had so many truly interesting things to say. First of all, you were brought on to Univa a couple of years ago.
Absolutely, yeah. My background is running a venture-backed company, so I've been fortunate and had 4 or 5 under my belt, and certainly this opportunity has been one of the more exciting and larger potential opportunities.
And so your company plays in the cloud space.
Absolutely, yep. Certainly cloud is obviously quite the buzz here at the show. I think we have a pretty interesting view, as you and I talked about, which is our pedigree and prior background was in grid. And grid really has been the precursor to cloud. So a lot of the issues and a lot of what is going to occur in cloud we've already been experiencing for the last several years.
And so you now have a unique technology which allows you to help carriers and enterprise customers. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So, we have 2 different divisions. One division of products really are the arms and legs of cloud. It's really everything you need to actually set up and provision, install, configure applications on a server to set up a private or a public cloud. We also have another set of products called the Reliance family that really focuses on how you connect the infrastructure to the end user experience and provides that intelligent dispatch, that intelligent air traffic controller that really understands how you prioritize workloads and then subsequently create the amount of hardware that you need to fulfill upon those obligations around the applications.
Now, for those people that are interested in learning more about cloud computing or they're just not sure what the definition is, you ran through 4 or 5, depending on what analyst firm you subscribe to, definitions of what it constitutes cloud computing. Could you go through those?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at cloud computing, there's really 4 to 5 key kind of requirements around cloud. The first is boundless applications. The second one is a hardware resource pool or a shared resource, oftentimes thought of as boundless capacity. The third one is a service-based approach, and then a virtualized environment. Gartner is adding a 5th defining requirement, which is around metering. But those 4 or 5 really define cloud. I think oftentimes people look at cloud and they define it around a different set of variables, which is around infrastructure as a service, platform as a service called PaaS, and software as a service. I think the characteristics of the 5 that I defined really are what encompasses those 3, and then within those 3 different variables, you can then figure out how you structure or frame that individual provider within it.
And so we're seeing that carriers are virtually all either embracing cloud computing today or it looks like they're going to in the future. And you've mentioned that there are 3 different classes of the carriers and the way they charge and the way they deploy virtualization. Do you want to go over those?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've actually spoken to a number of service providers here in the show, and there's kind of a couple of different ways to look at the service provider market. The first is when they look at cloud, I think oftentimes they mistakenly focus only on the cost savings around cloud, how you increase server utilization and look at really that value as being the only benefit of cloud. What they really should also focus on, which is even more of an interesting, compelling opportunity, is around using pricing as a competitive weapon on how you actually go about delivering your services. So I think the average service provider needs to think about the market in a little bit different way, and I use the analogy of an airline in which right now the service provider is charging the same price for every seat. But in fact, what they should be doing is mimicking what happens in the airline industry, where they start charging based on quality of service or bandwidth or usage, where they can then align their customers and actually charge more and get creative differentiation around that.
And more effectively utilize the resources that they're purchasing, I would imagine, as well.
Well, absolutely. If you think about it, they can use pricing not only to increase their revenues, but they can actually then cherry pick the best customers that fit their patterns of supply. What I mean by that is if you have a customer that has heavy usage in the first 2 quarters, they can marry that with a set of customers that have heavy usage, like a retailer in the holiday quarters, and that what you have is you can actually fulfill all of your capacity and charge maximum pricing throughout that. So
that's a very interesting idea. So that way they really maximize utilization of their infrastructure, maximize profitability.
And you can drive that through your pricing, which is what you can do is charge more pricing if they have heavy workloads in one period of time, and then mirror that or complement that with another set of customers.
Now, how does your company help carriers achieve this nirvana of being able to price more effectively, charge more effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. So the moment they make a decision that they're going to use pricing as a competitive weapon and really go towards a quality of a QoS or a quality of service level pricing for applications, at that moment they need something that is that intelligent dispatcher that connects the application to the infrastructure, and this allows you to price based on that. And that's where you need a product like Reliance to actually be that central repository or intelligent dispatch that really prioritizes and monitors everything.
Okay, so it basically is the intelligence that helps manage the cloud, basically.
Exactly. Without that, you basically have to rely upon a very manual, static approach, which ultimately, when you're talking about eventually hundreds and thousands of customers, a person sitting in front of a console is not going to be able to manage all of that.
That's great. And so you mentioned earlier you have over 100 customers right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We have over 100 customers, 20 of the top Fortune 100, but also a number of large service providers as well.
So large enterprises are also customers for you?
Yeah, exactly. The way we look at the market is that, and when you look at cloud, the adoption patterns are going to be different between service providers and the enterprise. We see faster adoption around the service providers because they know that they've got to be deploying cloud services in a very large way within 36 months. So they've got to build and buy their platforms now. Versus an enterprise, they can take much more of a reactionary, more of kind of an incremental approach. And where we see our enterprise customers is they're trying to identify a handful of applications they can move to a private cloud, and then also maybe a more limited number of applications they can move to a public cloud, and they're just going to kind of ease into it.
So what's next for the company?
Well, we certainly have big thoughts and big aspirations. We're kind of riding the big wave of cloud. But as I mentioned, I think one of our unique propositions is that we've been in this market and dealing with scale-out architecture now for almost a decade, and we now are seeing that inflection point. And really what we believe has happened is there's been pent-up demand for SOA and scale-out architecture, and virtualization has been finally the thing that has actually unplugged the dam and has let the water out. So,
now you'd mentioned some timetables. I mean, we're all familiar with the hype cycle of technology, but you gave me some idea or your thoughts on when the market is going to take off, and we're right now in May of 2009. Where do you think we're going to be in the next few years with cloud computing? Yeah,
so what we've done is we've identified there's really, we think, going to be 4 early adopter markets, and where they're going to be buying in large volume cloud software over the next 12 to 24 months, and then the rest of the market is going to really buy kind of 24 to 36 months out. So where we see the 4 early adopter markets are the following. The first one is advanced computing. It's people that have large computational workloads. That's commercial banks, financial services, oil and gas, life sciences. Those are some of the big use cases. But secondly, we see the service provider market. They've got to be buying they've got to buy their platforms now and build them now so they can offer services farther out. Web services is certainly a big use case. And then a fourth one we don't play in, but we certainly see as a big market is the developer community. If you look at Amazon and their AWS, the majority of their customers are individual developers.
Sure. Jason, thank you so much. This was a pleasure, and I appreciate you being on our program today.
Absolutely. Well, great. Well, thank you very much, Rich.